Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me again. It's Alan Barry Laboucan. I'm the host and founder of Rocks and Stocks News. And recently, about a week, 10 days ago, I had a out of the usual phone call with Ewan Downie at i80 Gold just for a simple update. He had so much to talk about that I decided to put the camera on and let everybody listen into the update. And now they've just earlier today, they released some quite remarkable results from their project, Granite Creek in Nevada. So I wanted to have Ewan on again to discuss this news. Thank you very much for joining us again, Ewan.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. Good to see you.
Well, that's some pretty eye-opening news. You've got high grade in a open pit target in the oxides in Nevada. You often hear open pit and high grade, but that's what you delivered. Let's talk about that.
This is a project, Granite Creek. Formerly was called the Pinson Project, operated by Atna. But just a little bit of history about this project is back when Atna was in its final days. We tried both in 2014 and 2015 to take over Atna to get this project. So it's been a lot of years we've been watching and wanting this. And one of the things we felt was that the open pit opportunity had been somewhat overlooked, especially by Atna, because they were focused on the high grade underground, which was refractory, of course. And when we looked at it, we thought that the mag pit, where the first hole we drilled was in the CX pit, but the mag pit has some pretty substantial upside potential. So it was really, we felt the acquisition we just made with Waterton, the mag pit essentially justified the acquisition, never mind the underground or the CX pit. So this drilling has started in the CX pit. It intersected extremely high grades, good width, associated with a fault zone structure. True widths are unknown because these faults run at different directions, but it's a great way to start the program. Cyanide solubility assaying suggests that it was all oxide. So that's a good start to the program. We definitely will be doing a lot more drilling probably later in the year to target some of the open pit and have to look at, rather than just a heap leach on site, perhaps we'll need a CIL mill or something, because I don't think you want to be throwing 10 gram, because some sections were upwards of 20 grams within that hole. I don't think you want to be throwing that material on a heap leach pad.
Well, now that pit, was that operated by Atna, or was that a historical pit?
Yeah, those were pits from a long time back. And then one of the issues, I believe one of the reasons from when we were talking to Atna about buying them, why they weren't looking at the open pits, was because a ranch family, the Christensen family ranch and Seven Dot Ranch, as it's called, owned a lot of the surface rights that would preclude you from doing an open pit again. And we announced early in i80's history that we have acquired the Seven Dot Ranch and Jim Christensen and his family's portion of the project. So that will allow us to pursue an open pit, unlike Atna likely didn't have the ability to do that.
So you've got the surface rights now, including the mineral rights.
Yeah, so that was some of the surface rights were already in place, but the key area where this drill hole was drilled is in an area that Atna did not own the surface rights. So there's no ability to pursue the open pit there. And it's the hole started to bang. But if you look at the average grade of the resource that we published for this project for the open pit is about 1.9 grams. And you know how few 1.9 gram heap leaches there are in the world.
Yeah, like the average grade of pits are going well under a gram now. And so, one of the things that one of my mentors in geology always taught me, Bob Downie, he's no longer with us, unfortunately, but Bob always said, look at the distribution of the gold in the hole. And whether you look at the stuff in a gram or a bit better or the high grade stuff, it's very well distributed throughout that hole. Did I read that correctly, Ewan?
Yeah, very well. In that section, the composite section, the first assay was 2 grams. And then it goes 7 grams, almost 5 grams, 7 grams, 11 grams, 13 grams, 8 grams, 4.8 grams, then a few in the 1 gram area, and then back up to 8, 20, 22, 19, 18, 4. So it was, yeah, almost the entire section was 4 grams or better, other than a few individual samples in that entire section.
So what's the plan going forward with drilling? Are you going to, obviously you're going to want to try to expand on that. It's probably not an isolated lucky hit from your first hole. That was a metallurgical hole.
Yeah, well, we're trying to get the project permitted for now, since we do have the surface rights. We're now trying to get the permits in place to have the right to build a mine. We have the underground rights, so we are underground. We're preparing for test mining. We're drilling underground. So there's a lot of results to come, both open pit and underground. We've completed the open pit portion of the drill program, but all of the holes for the open pit, we're targeting metallurgy or geotechnical purposes for knowing what rocks, what we can do, hopefully, as a pit slope for the open pit. So the program wasn't really designed to necessarily to do any expansion yet, but visually we're seeing really good mineralization even outside the current resource envelope. So assuming that runs, I'd expect an expanded surface drill program to follow up on this beginning probably later in the year this year.
And do you have some more holes pending from this pit area target?
Yeah, quite a few actually. So we've got basically there was 4 holes drilled in and around the CX pits. That was the first one. There's 1 hole drilled over by what we call the old A pit, and then we drilled 4 holes proximal to the mag pit. So there's still 8 holes outstanding, and I think there's 2 additional geotech holes that we drilled as well. So there's 9 to 11 surface holes that were drilled. They're completed, and now we're just waiting for the assays.
And those four holes from CX is where you announced these results today. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned earlier that about the faults. Are you getting a handle on the mineralizing event and controls?
Yeah, I think it's reasonably well understood from the detailed drilling that Atna did from underground. There's a number of fairly well understood faults. They all sort of splay off what's called the range front fault. The range front fault essentially is equivalent of the Getchell fault up at the Turquoise Ridge mine to the north. So it's the same fault structure that runs down through our property. We're both located adjacent to an intrusive complex. So it's really an identical geological setting almost to what you see at Turquoise Ridge, except Turquoise Ridge is quite deep where most of our mineralization is. They use multiple shafts, whereas all of the mineralization we'll be drilling off, I'd say for the next few years, will be entirely within the scope of where you'd be able to mine by open pit or by ramp. So it's closer to surface, and the upside potential at depth is completely open. So I expect this is going to be quite a sizable deposit at the end of the day.
It sounds like you're being quite maybe conservative there, Ewan. Does that fault affect your targeting deeper as well?
No, I think you've a lot of the Carlin style, the bigger Nevada deposits are associated with major faults and or splay faults. So it's really, this hole was drilled down into where we expected to get grade, obviously I don't think we expected the entire hole to run 6.8 grams, but it was an area we expected to get grade, so we could do a full metallurgy program in preparation for our feasibility study that we want to deliver, and for the permitting. And as we've been going through the PEA process, one of the reasons we slightly delayed our PEA, which should be out in the coming weeks, is because we knew once we started really modeling what they had before, that there are these higher grade centers, say 3 grams or better. And I don't think you really want to throw 3 gram material on a heap leach pad because you'll lose so much recovery. So we wanted to build in a CIL plant into our PEA just to be, just to demonstrate that we do have this option. You could, in the future, I'm sure we'd look at capital versus recoveries, but right now we're thinking that using a CIL plant for some of the mineralization would be beneficial for the overall project. And of course, Nevada Gold Mines has a CIL plant at Twin Creeks immediately north of us and Lone Tree immediately south of us. So there are existing plants, but rather than just assume we were going to use somebody else's facility, we built into our PEA a CIL plant would be constructed by the company, but that's subject to change as we evolve here.
So what stood out for me from our previous chat recently, Ewan, was that you've been a good buyer of assets, and but a lot of those are joint ventures, and this one is 100% owned, where you guys hold your future in your own hands.
And that's what we want to work towards as a company. Is right now South Arturo, our producing mine, is operated by Nevada Gold Mines. We own 40%. Here we're the operator, and we get to choose how it gets developed. McCoy Cove, that we own down south on the Battle Mountain Trend by the Phoenix mine, 11 gram underground deposit. We own 100% of that. But really processing, I think, as we discussed previously, is really the key for us here in Nevada. And so both of these projects, the processing arrangement that we hopefully come up with in the future will be a big milestone for the company. But yeah, we are targeting more projects that we can control and we can operate. Not against joint ventures. We've had a lot of success and or lawsuits in the past, as what happened with Hard Rock. But we're not against having partners, but it would be better, I think, after our experiences over the last couple of years, that we're now looking towards. It's a lot better when we operate and we call the shots. So that's something we're trying to work towards as a company.
Yeah, I think that's a good strategic move. It gives you your future in your own hands, right? You don't have to wait for somebody else to make a decision to move it forward. If you like what you see, you keep moving it forward.
Yeah, it's always nice to share the cost, though. That exploration and development, et cetera, it's a capital intensive business. And sometimes it's nice to have somebody else to foot part of the bill. But especially with what happened at Premier with the Centerra taking us to court over a feasibility study, we kind of changed I'd never had a bad experience with the joint venture partner before that. So it kind of, I guess, tainted my view, but I'm trying not to let it taint me forever.
Well, now down in Nevada, though, you guys had good relationships and not too many difficulties.
Yeah, I think we've got a great relationship with Nevada Gold Mines. We've worked well together at South Arturo. The mine has always been operated by Gold Strike. So the Gold Strike team runs our operation. We process at Gold Strike to the south. And recently, the ex-general manager, the guy who was across from us, across the table from us on the joint venture, retired from Barrick or Nevada Gold Mines, and he joined our team. So I think that speaks to the fact that we built a good relationship with our partner. And when he left, said, "Hey, why don't you come work with us on a consulting part-time basis? If you don't want to work full-time, we'd love to have you work with us." And he said, "Sure, you guys are great. I'll come help you out."
That's always something you want to tick off, as good people involved. And you've always surrounded yourself, whether it's in exploration or development and mining, that you surround yourself with good people.
Yeah, well, I'm not a mining engineer, so I need to make sure we've got a strong mining team so I can rely on them to be the brains of the operation.
Now you mentioned something just a couple minutes ago, Ewan, that I think is important to delve on a little bit, was your capital costs, and you said that it's nice to have someone to share those costs with you. In the case of Granite Creek, I think you're looking at something that might not have a big price tag to bring it into production. Is that correct?
Yeah, the underground mine it was under care and maintenance when we acquired it. So getting underground rehabbed, I think cost us $1 million and a half to get to where we are. And we're currently rehabbing some of the developed areas so we can start test mining. And I believe that's another $1.6 million. So we will be test mining with fairly low capital. And assuming all goes well, the drill program proves up what we hope to, we'd be starting to add some development levels and maybe some additional ventilation to prepare for full scale mining on the property. But I'd estimate our total capital for that's going to be under $10 million. So it's pretty good. We ended last quarter with 70 million. So we're in good shape for that. And the heap leach project, if we didn't build the CIL mill, would be relatively cheap here. So, we're looking at trying to get lower capex projects that are fairly advanced than go after, a monster open pit that's going to take $1 billion to construct, much like that was what we had at Premier. And we felt $1 billion capital was a little much for a small up and comer to do. So we brought in Centerra as a partner. If we had a project of that scale in Nevada, we'd probably look for a partner still, but
well, that's a heck of a combination. Low potential capex in Nevada, high grade, open pit, underground, high grade potential. You've got something pretty nice on your hands there. It looks like, Ewan.
Yeah, last seven odd years since we've been trying to build ourselves up in Nevada, we've been quite fortunate to have acquired some of the highest grade projects in the state, and we're going to continue looking for those type of high grade projects as we continue to grow our future portfolio of development assets.
Yeah, something else that brings up, Ewan, whenever I'm looking at a company that's, in the development stage, I think of the Lassonde curve, and it looks like you guys are able to shrink that Lassonde curve between the two big spikes that he talks about in the Lassonde curve, one on exploration, and then when you've had success with exploration, putting it into a mine. Usually people got to wait several years in that development discount window. It looks like you guys will fast track that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's why I say that the processing arrangement for Granite Creek is going to be key for us this year. That's a milestone we've set for ourselves in the company, is we need to get that processing arrangement worked out with our partner at South Arturo, hopefully, so that we have the ability to put Granite Creek into full development. So the sooner you hear anything about processing, I'd say the sooner we can say we're going to be producing out of Granite Creek, because the underground, it's early days, and a lot of what we're seeing in the underground drilling is visual, but every expected structure we've intended to test in our underground drill program, I believe visually we've hit on 100% of the drill holes so far. So now it's just the assay labs are so backed up, we're just eagerly awaiting the assays to come in, make sure they confirm what we think we're drilling off, and then be in a position to start developing that area.
Well, with a lot of folks in this business over the years, I've learned to keep my guard up when they talk about visuals, but you and having followed your companies for the last 16 years and knowing you as a no BS kind of guy, I take that as a very important comment.
Yeah, it's, obviously it's unlike a quartz vein in Canada or something you might be drilling in Mexico, where you can see the galena and you're going to have silver, or you see the on surface of quartz vein, if it's associated with pyrite, you get a lot of pyrite and some visible gold, you know you're going to get assays, whereas this Carlin stuff looks a bit like coal or mud, and you look at it and say, wow. And you know, it's hard to get used to coming from Canada going to Nevada. You see a picture, they send you a picture. This looks great. And it looks like a bunch of coal. It's like, really? That doesn't look very good.
But seeing the right structures and seeing the right packages of rock, that's what's important, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we know from historically when Atna was developing it and drilling it, there's core on site, so we've seen it, and you can look at the core we're hitting compared to what they're hitting. You know, you're in a fault structure, and that hole ran 18 grams, and you say, well, looks pretty much the same. So let's, fingers crossed, it's going to run the same.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Ewan, I just wanted to wrap it up on one comment that I was recently talking with some investor friends of mine, and I made a comment about having followed your career in my reports from the Wolfden first iteration to then spinning out Premier Gold, and Premier Gold recently being bought out, and now you've made money for your shareholders a couple times, and they got some shares in i80 Gold as well. I mentioned that Ewan's had some big successes in the past, but i80 looks like it could be the biggest. Do you think that was an out of the realm of possibility?
No, I actually think what we've put together and what we're hoping to get completed here in Nevada, in terms of getting all the ability to get permits, processed, et cetera, that this is kind of going to be, in my opinion, maybe the best one that we've built so far. But
well, I'm glad I'm on the same page as you, Ewan. That's sort of what I thought after our first conversation, and after these results, and getting to look a little more into, having a chat with you about them. I think that that comment has got a chance to be correct.
Yeah, I still say, though, that Geraldton that Equinox acquired from us, though, is a world-class asset. It was just a capital number that we couldn't chew, and the assets that we've acquired here in Nevada are low capex opportunities. And as our intention to stage them, we expect to be able to use as much as possible cash flow from operations to fund the next stage of growth, rather than going out and trying to build a bunch of mines all at once.
$1 billion price tags.
Yeah.
That's always a tough one. Well, Ewan, I'm always glad when companies I start following deliver with the drill rig, and I don't want to keep you for too long, so I think I'll wrap it up. And was there anything else I forgot to ask that you think we should have closing comments?
No, I think we touched on it. Thanks again for having me on the show.
Okay, well, let me close things off. And folks, one of the things I'm always looking for, and I've had a pretty good success rate with over the years, was looking in areas where I think that a company can get a premium. In this case, I call it the Nevada premium. I haven't picked a lot of companies in the area, but I've had a pretty good strike rate with those that got taken over or became mining companies. And I think that i80 Gold is one that, has the chance to get that Nevada premium in spades. They're very early in the new iteration of the company with i80 Gold, and focused on Nevada, focused on high grade, focused on projects that can be low capex and low cost of production. And those are all the things that I like to look for. And I invite you to take a closer look at i80 Gold. I think that they've got a real special situation here, an undervalued situation. So and one that, if gold goes up like I think it will, I think that they will have a much higher re-rating of their valuation. So have a look, do your homework as always. These shows are for information purposes only. Important to talk to your broker and your analyst or your friends and your confidants to do your homework, and I think you'll find lots in i80 Gold. So have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.